The Atlanta Braves take down the Boston Red Sox 4-2 in a fantastic pitching duel, and for the first time this year, are over 500. Let's talk about it.
This is the Braves Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. He's Jake Mastroianni, host of Locked On Braves. Follow him on social media at Shortstop Ball. Speaking of shortstops, we're going to talk about Nick Allen because the dude can pick it. But Jake, 4-2 victory for the Atlanta Braves. It was a lot closer until the ninth, and Boston forgot how to throw strikes for a little while there. But I think the big story of this game, the thing we're all going to be talking about, is just how phenomenal the pitching was, the starting pitching was on both sides. I mean, Chris Sale gives you 7 innings, 1 run on 5 hits. He walks 2, strikes out 8. Garrett Crochet goes blow for him. 7 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs, no walks, 8 strikeouts. This reminds me of the good days back in the 90s when you'd get Maddox or Glavine going up against some other team's top starter. This was an opening day matchup, really.
It was, and it lived up to it. You know, I feel like too often you get these hyped pitching matchups and both starters are out by like the 5th inning. It just seems to happen. Maybe it's because it's magnified when it does happen, but this is one that lived up to it. And I think you could see both guys a little bit into it. Certainly Chris Sale, I mean, he doesn't need a ton to get motivated, but I feel like there's a little extra juice with Chris Sale tonight. But what an unbelievable matchup in this game. Between these two pitchers. I mean, as you were saying before we started recording, if one of your team wasn't in this game, it was probably a lot more enjoyable just to sit back and watch these two lefties who can strike out the world go at it. It was a really fun matchup.
Yeah, I since we played a day game yesterday, I spent last night watching Jacob deGrom versus Hunter Brown, Rangers Astros, and that was really enjoyable because I didn't have a rooting interest there. This was a little stressful, but the Braves come out of it with the victory. All right, let's get into what Chris Sale did a little bit, because he faced Boston last year, but that was at home, right? 6 scoreless innings in Truist Park, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts, 6 hits. This was his first time back in Fenway Park on the mound since the trade. And to your point, it really felt like he had a little bit something extra there. His four-seam fastball averaged 2 miles an hour up from his season average. Now, I know that he had a couple starts where it was a little bit lower, so there was a little bit of growth it could make in there, but 2 mile an hour difference is not just getting back to your normal velocity. He had that little bit extra. And again, the slider was just so fantastic. And to the point that you've made a couple times now, Sean Murphy just kept going back to that well, and it kept working for Chris Sale.
And what I loved about it tonight, and Glav mentioned this on the broadcast too, but the way he was able to manipulate both versions of the slider, and the one I thought that was really good tonight, he was able to backdoor it to righties where it almost plays like a curveball because it's got more vertical downward action. Like it's starting out as a fastball away and then it just kind of drops off the plate. And I thought he did that really well tonight until he didn't. And he made a mistake with one that went for a home run. But I thought this was the best version of Chris Sale we've seen all year. I think it's quite easily his best game that he's thrown all season, especially through those first 6 innings. I was a little worried about him going back out for the bottom of the 7th. Certainly send him back out there, but you had that long top half of the 7th inning where the Braves didn't score a run. And it always feels like when that happens, the starter, gets cold, and he came out into that 7th inning and was more 94, 95, and we had been seeing him sit, 96, 97. So I think maybe it just took him a little bit longer to warm back up in that 7th inning. But through the 6th innings, especially, and after that first batter in the 7th inning, this was the best version of Chris Sale we've seen all year. That fastball velocity, as you mentioned, was up 2 miles per hour. The slider was as devastating as ever. But my favorite pitch of the night, 1st and 3rd, Alex Bregman at the plate, and he paints 97 in. Bregman's probably thinking he's getting that backdoor slider, or that back foot slider rather, and he paints inside on Bregman 97 and just freezes them. That to me is vintage Chris Sale. He's able to do stuff like that and dot up that fastball at 97. So I love this start from Chris Sale. This looked like the Cy Young version, easily the best start of the year for me.
Yeah, and credit to Sean Murphy for going outside of what everybody thought he would do on that pitch, and then credit to Chris Sale, obviously, for landing it. It really felt like the guy who gave him the most trouble today was Jarren Duran. Gets on multiple times. He does get the pickoff there to end the 6th inning, but it just like outside of that, he really, he held Alex Bregman to 0 for 3. He did, I believe he hit Bregman once, if I remember right. Devers 0 for 3, just really kind of shut down the big part of this lineup. And then you get to Daysbel Hernandez, clean 8th for the most part, 1 walk. But then Raisel Iglesias, he gets the save in the 9th, right? So we can't, it's hard to nitpick too much about the result. He gets the save, but he does give up a run, and everything was back to being elevated in the zone again. I thought we had gotten past this, and like the last 2 outings that he gave up runs, we talked about it was bad luck, things out of the zone that guys were hitting. This was the RBI pitch was center cut down the middle, and Raisel Iglesias just really is going to struggle to be successful when he does things like that, especially in this ballpark.
Yeah, it's a bad outing for Raisel. We've been, somewhat complimentary of him over his last several starts with just how the stuff looked and the location of it. This is a bad one. He hits Bregman to begin it, and everything else is just up in the zone. Just a tough one overall for him. He gets through it and gets the save, thankfully. I know I don't want to make even the strikeout that he got. It's an elevated slider that should have been destroyed. It was just left over the middle of the plate, and luckily, I guess it fooled Christian Campbell. But this was not a great outing for Raisel Iglesias. You can kind of throw in a little bit of an excuse for him that it was a really long top half of the 9th inning. And I just talked about that with Chris Sale. And sometimes, I don't love when that pitcher has to sit there for a while and he's just kind of mulling things over in the bullpen, waiting for his turn, but still got to come over. And maybe that intensity when you go from a 1-run lead, to a 3-run lead like that again, but I'm just making excuses. It wasn't a good outing for him. But I don't want to brush over what Daysbel did either, because that to me was huge. Because if you have to make a change at closer at some point, if Raisel can't figure it out, Daysbel feels like that guy. And that was a big moment for Daysbel to be able to, first of all, he puts the leadoff guy on with a walk, and that's going to be part of his game. But he has the stuff to overcome that. And one thing that's weird about Daysbel this year is he hasn't gotten the strikeouts. And this is somebody that's typically a 30% strikeout rate pitcher, and it hasn't been there. But I loved this from Daysbel because it felt like a playoff type atmosphere, a playoff type moment, and he was able to come back and get Jarren Duran, who had been really good in the game, get Rafael Devers, who's been one of the hottest players in baseball over the last couple of weeks. I thought that was a huge moment for Daysbel to say, hey, I can get through the top of another team's lineup in the 8th inning in a one-run game with everything on the line. So that I thought was one of the biggest keys of the game for the Braves.
And the Duran strikeout, all of the strikes, fastballs up and in. The locations were
98,
great.
99.
Just pumping heat and pumping it up, making it uncomfortable, getting you in on the handle of the bat. Just not a comfortable at bat for a guy that really has not had a lot of uncomfortable at bats all season or for the last year and a half now. To your point, like you need more things like this because you may have to make a change and he may end up being your guy. But just overall, you get through, you get the win. In just a minute, I want to talk about the offense. The home runs you hit, the walks, the missed opportunities, and we'll get to some of y'all's comments here on YouTube. We'll do that next, right here on the Braves Postcast. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group of friends to come with you. Game Time makes it possible because Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got incredible last-minute deals, great views of your seat, and a lowest price guarantee that takes all the worry out of buying. They're the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an upcoming MLB game, like, say, next Friday versus the Padres, when we expect Ronald Acuna Jr. to make his Truist Park debut for 2025. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action, because FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game both before tip-off and live. Player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay, Jake, so the Braves runs in this one, back-to-back home runs in the second inning off of Crochet, both of them elevated fastballs above the zone that Matt Olson, Sean Murphy go up and get and send out. And you made this comment on social media partway through the game, but Matt Olson's at-bats in this one, for as much as we've maligned the guy for his struggles recently, he had some pretty good at-bats tonight.
Yeah, against a tough lefty in Crochet. I mean, he got a couple of hits and he had a line out in this one, 96.9, 91.9, 100 miles per hour on those against, again, a really good lefty. So that's a very welcome sight for Braves fans and Matt Olson. Hopefully that gets him going. He did strike out in the last at bat, got a hanging curveball that he probably wasn't expecting there from Liam Hendricks. And, but other, he had some really good swings. Sean Murphy too had the other home run. He had some good swings tonight. And look, I've made it clear on my podcast. I know we've talked about it here and you have elsewhere too, but the whole conversation about Drake Baldwin getting more playing time is not a slight at Sean Murphy, who's been really good too. And he picks up a couple of hits tonight, has another hard hit ball. So both of those guys were really good tonight for the Atlanta Braves and got those back-to-back homers of Crochet, because you probably weren't going to get much else, although they had some chances, Lindsay.
Yeah. And we're going to get to those chances. To your point of the catchers being good, going into today's game, Braves catchers are combined for second in WAR in baseball behind only Seattle. That's almost entirely Cal Raleigh there in Seattle. So Braves catchers have been very good. But let's get to those opportunities. Seventh inning was one of the kind of egregious missed opportunities there to me. Marcell Ozuna's, he strikes out to open the inning, and that was, another typical long at bat for Marcell Ozuna, but he takes a called strike on a cutter on the outer third. Just a little bit tough there. Olson singles, Sean Murphy singles, Ozzie Albies singles, bases loaded, 1 out. And then 2, I'm going to say kind of rough at-bats, right? Michael Harris strikes out for the second out. He sees 4 pitches. 1 of them is in the strike zone, right? He swings at a cutter away. He takes a cutter away. He fouls off a cutter in the zone. And then he swings through a cutter that is looked to be like a foot off the plate. Just really kind of rough at bat there. And then Stuart Fairchild comes up and Snit doesn't go with a pinch hitter. And I understand, I'm assuming the reason why Snit didn't pinch hit for Fairchild in the 7th is Drake Baldwin would be your pinch hit option probably, and he's a lefty against a lefty on the mound. That's not a typical Snit kind of thing, even though Baldwin's better against lefties than Stuart Fairchild is. How do you feel about the decision to stick with Fairchild there in the 7th versus bringing in somebody else, a Verdugo, a Baldwin preferably, to take that at bat instead?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is you're going to start Fairchild against the lefty and Crochet. I guess you kind of have to stick with that. You also have Nick Allen on deck, and if he were to reach, then maybe that's the point where you go in with a pinch hitter in Drake Baldwin. So, I mean, in hindsight, I guess I could see it. Maybe if there was still 1 out and you thought he could give you a better at bat and put the ball in play to try to at least get a sac fly. I don't hate it. I mean, in hindsight, yeah, I'd rather, if you're just asking me straight up, would I rather have Drake Baldwin in that at bat than Fairchild? Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's, the worst call in the world there. But I thought there were 2 chances. The one you're talking about in the 7th, that's just a terrible at bat by Michael Harris. The guy that doesn't strike out a lot normally will put the ball in play. He just looked absolutely lost in that at bat.
Yeah.
And granted, again, Garrett Crochet, one of the best pitchers in the game. I get that. And you're not going to get a lot of opportunities, and you got to take advantage. The only other shot they had was in the third inning. Nick Allen, was able to get on to lead off the inning. Eli White can't get the bunt down. Then Nick Allen gets caught stealing, and the inning just falls apart. And look, you got to be aggressive. You got to try to do those little things to manufacture against Garrett Crochet. But like we've talked about, while I'm very much pushing for them to do more things like that to manufacture runs, they got to be good at it to be able to do it. And they're just not. So that was, again, you're not going to get many opportunities against a great pitcher like that. And they kind of failed in the real two opportunities that they had. Luckily, Olson and Murphy ran into a couple.
Yeah. And I believe this is the fourth caught stealing from Nick Allen this year. It reminds me of Ronald's MVP year, where yes, he stole 73, but he also led baseball in caught stealings. And at a certain point in time, from the analytical perspective, it takes so many more successful stolen bases to override one caught stealing. So for Allen to get caught a fourth time, it was a close play. They had to review it to get the out, but still just a little frustrating there. And then you get to the ninth, and it's a completely different ball team almost. I mean, you're in a situation where it's funny too, because this starts off, Marcell Ozuna walks, they pinch run for him. Matt Olson strikes out. Sean Murphy grounds out. And from there, Ozzie Albies walks, Michael Harris walks, Stuart Fairchild walks, and Nick Allen walks, and you get 2 runs. I don't know whether to credit Tim Hires for them being very patient and waiting for him to start throwing strikes, or in this case, get pulled from the game, or if it was just these guys are good baseball players and understood they can't throw a strike right now. We can just leave the bat on our shoulders and take the free runs.
I think it's probably more of the latter. Unfortunately, you walk Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies in back-to-back.
You deserve to lose.
Yeah, that's not good. Those guys are, while they don't strike out a lot, they also are not going to walk very often either. So that to me is just, they saw a pitcher was really struggling, and thankfully Ozzie was able to get one of his 2 check swings and was able to work that walk. And Michael Harris just said, I'm not touching anything until he throws me one in the zone. So especially after his last at bat that he had. So yeah, it was more so just a pitcher that just completely lost it and couldn't find the strike zone, but it ended up being big, gave the Iglesias a little bit of a cushion. So could be a little bit stress-free and ended up needing it. But yeah, like I said, they only had 2 chances really against Crochet. Then they had the chance in the 9th inning and they were able to get it going. Eli White just missed getting a double down the line that would have really broken it open. But yeah, they do just enough to get the win.
Yeah. And so again, Braves take down the Red Sox 4-2 in rivalry weekend. We're rivals because we shared a city 100 years ago. So we're rivals. That's how this works, obviously. Okay. So game 2 tomorrow. Remember, this is on Fox. This is not on the typical FanDuel Sports Network. This is Grant Holmes versus Lucas Giolito. Going to be really interesting to see how that kind of matchup. We will be back for another postcast after that. After that game is over. Do us a favor. If you're listening on audio, Spotify, Apple, YouTube Music, leave a 5-star review, leave some kind words on Apple. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, both Locked On Braves and Locked On Sports Atlanta. Hit the notification bell so you know when we drop the next episode. Until next time, this has been the Braves Postcast.